The Cincinnati Bengals defense had a bounce back performance against the New York Giants, and it sounds like Jordan Battle may have more playing time coming. But what's that mean for the outlook of the defense? Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, covering your team every day on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Welcome in to those of you who are new to this show. We have you updated here on Locked On Bengals with news and analysis 5 days a week. And if you've been a regular listener, if you're an everydayer, if you make us your first listen, well, we appreciate your putting us in your routine so very much. And today we're going to spend some time talking about the defense. If you missed it yesterday in the film review with Mike Santagata, we spent a lot of time talking about the offense. We didn't get to the defense until quite late in the show. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel, where you can get started with $200 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. You can check it out at FanDuel.com to get started. And James, one way this defense could make strides is with personnel changes. We've seen guys getting healthier, and notably, we're seeing a slow growth for the role of Jordan Battle. And if you compare this to the way that roles expand on this team for other players that are earning coaches' trust or earning bigger roles in the past, it might take a little bit longer. But backed up by comments from defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, it does seem like the trajectory for Jordan Battle at this point is certainly upward.
Yeah, Lou Anarumo on Bengals Line on 700 WLW on Monday night said, quote, "I think Jordan is continuing to improve. We like how that rotation is going. Vaughn is doing well in his role. So we can continue to bring Jordan along, and both of those guys will see significant playing time." And I think that last part is important because you're talking about Jordan Battle played a decent amount against the Ravens, comparatively speaking, I would say, defensive-wise. And we saw him start to rotate with Vaughn. This past game, even more so. 14 snaps, 4 tackles. You saw the production there. And so maybe it's not a full-on swap like some want, but can it be a rotation? It probably should be a rotation because they need to find answers to the test. And maybe that doesn't mean play Jordan 60 snaps, but maybe it means 15 to 20 or 26, depending on the week. And especially a week where it's very, very much a run-heavy Cleveland Browns offense. Maybe we see Jordan, who tackled well. You need him to tackle well, and you need guys that can make plays. And so maybe Jordan is that guy that's going to help you make plays. So I have no issue with Lou Anarumo kind of pivoting here and searching, and they need that to continue because this secondary is going to get tested this week. I know the Deshaun Watson element of this, but Amari Cooper does exist. They do have Jerry Jeudy does exist. They have guys that are capable, and so you need to be capable on the back end as well, because you don't want Deshaun Watson to have his 2024 best day against, and he's been crappy. So that best day might not be that great. You don't want it to happen on Sunday in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that the most interesting thing to me about this might be the fact that Lou Anarumo is leaning into a secondary rotation this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even just Jordan Battle. We're going to spend time here talking about Jordan Battle, of course, but it was Jalen Davis rotating in a significant amount in week 6 as well. Jordan Battle, in his 7 run defense snaps, he had 7 run defense snaps, 7 coverage snaps in his 14 snaps, according to PFF's charting against the Giants in week 6. He had 2 stops, which qualifies as a defensive win on a play. He was involved in making those tackles. One of them very easy to remember in the run game near the line of scrimmage. He also had 3 tackles, didn't miss any tackles. And that is a pretty significant contribution to the stat sheet. Not the tackles are a great stat, but to be around the ball, to be making plays on the ball carrier on 3 out of your 14 plays, it's a pretty high rate of making plays on the ball. And what we've talked about for this defense is needing guys to step up and make plays. And while Jordan Battle hasn't contributed with a sack or, a highlight TFL or an interception or a forced fumble at this point, he's been around the ball in a very limited sample size so far. And it was a nice bounce back game for him, as it were, compared to his limited sample size against Baltimore, where he goes onto the field and immediately gets picked on and gives up a big catch on his first play of the game. But clearly, going from 8 snaps against Baltimore to 14 against the Giants, he is doing things to get back into the coaching staff's good graces, if that is indeed why he wasn't on the field early in the season very much. 1 snap in week 2, 2 snaps in week 4, really not playing very much on defense this year. Getting back to a point now where you're seeing a growth in snaps over the last couple of weeks. And maybe it takes a little time for a more significant jump because, as Lou Anarumo said, despite what many Bengals fans think, while Von Bell is not a great safety, he is not a huge problem most of the time at safety. Occasionally, we see things that are very obvious, and it's like, okay, Von, that was a problem play. And that's happened on like 3 very notable plays where it's been very visible for Von Bell this year. But that's kind of the nature of the safety position too. So I understand the hesitancy from Lou to say, all right, Jordan Battle's going to go be a full-time strong safety or full-time rotational safety, because they move guys between free and strong all the time, but he'd primarily be a strong safety. I understand the hesitance there. If Von is still doing important things in terms of helping to get the defense lined up and stuff like that, maybe communication would be much worse without Von on the field, and it's already got its issues, right? But these are steps in the right direction of getting a 3rd-round pick at safety, which is a guy that should be expected to play safety at a high level in the NFL, a 3rd-round safety in Jordan Battle. Getting him back into the mix, getting him ready to be a more full-time contributor in the future, because hopefully that is his future.
For sure. And I think there was still a path to that coming into camp, is to him coming in and potentially battling, pun intended or not intended, however you want to take it. I don't care either way. But Jordan Battle battling for that starting job. And there was no battle. And I think it had a lot to do with Jordan himself. And people roll their eyes and they do all of that, and that's fine. Say whatever. But it matters. And so hopefully, and I think he is, doing all of the right things, and it's translating now to more playing time. And hopefully they can find the balance of having Von Bell, Jordan Battle, Geno Stone. None of those guys have played to the level where they should feel comfortable in their job. They just haven't. And it was a step in the right direction, but they haven't. And people are going to cite PFF scores to me with Jordan. Jordan has everything to prove as well. And so this is what I like. I like that goes from 8 snaps to 14 snaps. He's clearly impressing the coaching staff and productive. And so now, all right, well, maybe he gets 20 snaps this week. What does he do with them? Hopefully we're talking about a tipped pick, a sack, some of those splash plays that they need. But yeah, Jordan Battle trending in the right direction. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm happy that he's out there, and hopefully it continues.
I'll also say that it could be game plan dependent. So your expectation shouldn't necessarily be that Jordan Battle will always have more snaps week over week. Maybe it isn't 20 this week. Maybe the Browns only run 50 plays after the defense for the last 2 weeks has been on the field for 80 plays each, and maybe it's only 10 snaps. And that's a greater snap share from a percentage basis, right? And
hopefully it is only 50 plays.
Yeah, we don't need to see that Browns offense more than is absolutely necessary. And we definitely don't need to see that Browns offense going up and down the field against this Bengals defense. It has had its issues and is embattled, to continue to use the word battle, but had a bit of a bounce back. And does that change the outlook for this team? There is one thing out of this game, James, that I am buying about this defense, and it's not a big thing, but there is one thing that I'm buying can make a difference for this defense going forward that doesn't have to do with Jordan Battle. So we can discuss that topic and more of our thoughts on the outlook for this defense, whether our minds have changed, coming up next. This episode of Locked On Bengals is sponsored by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality candidates that are right for the role. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is the tool that you should use with the tools you need to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, i.e. the Bengals go get Calais Campbell, who needs a better role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. If you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're not looking in the right place. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within just 24 hours. It can be that quick. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows you're wearing a lot of hats and may not have the time or resources to hire, so they're there to make it easy for you. And you can post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Today's show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the app you need in your life because it's daily fantasy the way it should be. All you do is join, 10 million members that have won billions of dollars in awarded winnings with PrizePicks. But it's daily fantasy sports that's accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long with PrizePicks. So maybe you think that Joe Burrow is going to go throw for more than his PrizePicks projection for passing yards, and that Nick Chubb, who probably makes his debut this week, runs for less than his PrizePicks projection for rushing yards. You can combine those and boom, start winning today. PrizePicks is really easy to use. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
James, as we discuss whether you're buying this defense, it's worth thinking about the state of injuries on that defensive line. And this is the one thing I'm buying about the defense right now. I still have a lot of questions. I still don't think this is going to be a high-end unit. Don't get me wrong. But I do think the ability to actually rotate defensive linemen matters. And Sam Hubbard playing his lowest percentage of snaps, he was talking about this, I think, with Jay Morrison writing about this for Bengals Talk SI is where I saw the quote. And Sam's talking about how he's usually just trying to survive out there at the end of a game. And talking about how this week, with the rotation they had, he was feeling pretty good at the end of the game. It's one of the best feelings he's had the day after a game in terms of soreness, in terms of fatigue on his body, he said. And so the one thing that I am buying right now is that this won't necessarily be the worst pass rushing unit in the NFL all year. And that getting guys back like Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, Miles Murphy, McKinley Jackson will be a better unit than we saw when it was truly dreadful out there and they're signing guys off the street who weren't even active in week 6. And I'm not saying this to disparage Lawrence Guy. I think he came in and did an admirable job. But getting the veterans back who have performed at least an average plus level in their careers is much better than what they had for several weeks this year.
Sure. And everybody can play their role. I think that's a big part of this, where maybe Lawrence Guy's active this week for whatever reason, but he's playing 10 snaps and not 50, and that's the balance. And so I buy it too if these guys, and I said this probably 2 weeks ago in the media room, like, can the Bengals defensive line be the 20th best defensive front in the NFL if they're healthy? And again, that's not a high bar when you think about the money they're spending there. And the answer should be yes. Now, do I feel great about their depth? No, because it's either young and inexperienced and unproven, or you're mentioning it, Lawrence Guy, J. Tufele, guys like that. But if they can stay healthy, you can have a rotation where McKinley Jackson is getting valuable reps and developing. Chris Jenkins is developing right before our eyes and making an impact, hopefully, throughout the year. At the same time, you're not banking on those guys to play 50 snaps. And there is a balance there. And so hopefully they can stay healthy, because Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, especially Hubbard over the past couple of games, like, I think you're starting to see like he's getting slightly healthier with that hamstring injury that's lingered. And those other 3 guys, hopefully, can continue to push forward. I think we want to see a little more from Rankins from a pass rush juice standpoint.
Yes.
So hopefully he brings that at some point. At the same time, Hill's probably coming off of his best game as a Bengal. Trey Hendrickson is Trey Hendrickson. So health, you need to stay healthy. If they are healthy, I do feel okay. Not amazing, but I feel okay about this defensive front. And that's big because they have enough pieces and a smart enough coordinator in Lou Anarumo, I think, to be a competent defense in that scenario. And competent is a lot better than what we saw for a couple of weeks there.
I think it's very matchup dependent too, right? They're going to continue to struggle with the Ravens. When they play the Ravens in a few weeks, I expect that to be, barring significant C-level change or player acquisition, neither of which are things that I think are reasonable to expect right now. I would expect that to be another game where they struggle on defense. If they were to play the Commanders again, I think that right now that style of quarterback, and those guys are similar, I would say, having watched them both against this Bengals defense, right? The guys that make it hard for you to bring them down because they're hyper athletic, the Josh Allens of the world, although they've got a great track record against Josh Allen. You would think the same for Patrick Mahomes too, and they did a relatively good job in that game. So I think that the matchups still do matter quite a bit. From a pass rush perspective, though, yeah, I mean, if they could be like 23 instead of 31 or 32 in terms of a pass rush, that makes a huge difference for this team. We just saw that from this team
Every
against
team,
the Giants.
every team, yeah, sorry to cut you off. Every team, I just don't want to forget this. Every team that has had a bye already has more sacks than the Bengals. So every team that's played 5 games has more sacks than the Bengals. The Bengals have 8 sacks on the year. They're 30th in the league. Only the Panthers and Falcons are lower.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously is unacceptable, right? You need something, and that's with Trey having a couple of games with multiple sacks too, right? Like, how many of those sacks are Trey? 6? 5?
I know he's got 4, maybe more. 5. Yeah, he's got 5.
This week against the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be the worst offensive line they've faced this year in terms of pass blocking, like up there with New England, right? And they should have had more success against New England. They got to Jacoby Brissett in that game actually constantly, and they just couldn't bring him down. And Watson is another relatively big and physical quarterback who has been at times in his career hard to bring to the ground. I'm not sure if he's still got that kind of ability in him with how poor he's been this year at just about everything. But the 1-5 Cleveland Browns, having lost Bill Callahan, have an offensive line that is pass blocking at a very poor level consistently in every game. And they've dealt with some injuries too. So another week for the Bengals defense to show that they are getting it together, that they can rush the passer in critical moments, that they can get off the field, that they can make plays. But again, I'm not going to be sitting here saying, yeah, this defense is back, even if they hold the Browns to 7 points this week. And that would be an accomplishment on the road in the division. But it's still one of the worst offenses in the NFL. The Browns are in the bottom of points scored this year. They're 28th in points scored this year. One of the worst offenses in Browns history, according to various stats that have been posted, asking for the Browns to make a quarterback change. But even if they do that this week, James, we're going to be sitting here saying we need to see more. And we need to see it for a longer period against better teams.
You are. They're not going to hold the Browns to 7 points. So it's not going to happen. Sorry. It's not. It's an awful. This is going to be a really tough game. And so that's pretty unlikely. I mean, they hadn't
done
done
a hypothetical, right? And then the Giants could have scored 13 or 20 if they get into the end zone instead of turning it over if they make their field goals.
Sure. I would just be, it would still surprise me if that happened. But to your point, it needs to, the resume is the resume. It is going to take a while to build that trust and that equity, which I'm a big equity guy. And I think we can talk a little bit about equity as Jordan Battle builds up some of his equity when we get into a Bengals rookie that was inactive for the first time. And a lot of people were puzzled by it. We will discuss Jermaine Burton coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And whether the Bengals are favored like they are this week, the line was 5.5 before Sunday Night Football dropped to 4.5 and has been moving around a little bit. Whether they're favored against the Browns or you're looking for player props, same game parlays, America's number one sportsbook, FanDuel, is the place to go because FanDuel is going to have everything you need. Plus, when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So whether it's live bets, whether it's prop bets, anything and everything in between, FanDuel has got you covered. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com, where you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Again, America's number one sportsbook, FanDuel at FanDuel.com.
Where's Jermaine Burton, James?
Oh, look at you. Look at you trying to get me got. No, Jermaine Burton inactive. Zach Taylor saying that it was just a game plan specific thing. I think a lot of people rolled their eyes at that. And full disclosure, know nothing as to why he was inactive. But I do think you can read tea leaves, and part of our job is that. And let's just say it out loud here. If Jermaine was doing all of the right things and building up that trust and equity, would they have made him inactive? Now, maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe he's doing everything right, and Zach, what he said at the podium is right. But that's hard for me to buy into. And so I don't know why he was inactive. Hopefully he is doing all of the right things because I do think he can help the team at some point. And that's what's tough here is when fans are pulling out their hair and like, I can't believe Jermaine isn't in the game. So when inactives came down and I said to the media, I'm like, man, if they struggle on offense, Jermaine Burton being inactive is going to be a topic. And of course, they struggle on offense and it's a topic. So hasn't had a catch since week 2 against the Chiefs. I'm not sure he's been targeted since then either. I don't think he has. But it's one of those things where fans have seen him make big plays and they wonder why he's not out there. And I don't know why, but I assume it's because he's still earning the trust of the coaching staff and probably Joe Burrow and insert whatever else. And the fact that he's gotten like 1 or 2 snaps on offense, and then just goes to inactive. I do think that that's telling, even if Zach Taylor downplayed it. And so we'll see how he responds. Hopefully it's in a good way. And they need him to respond in a good way because he is talented, and we've seen that. And at some point, you're going to need Jermaine Burton to make plays downfield. I'm not sure when. Maybe it's this Sunday, but it does need to happen at some point. And hopefully, that's why they drafted him. So hopefully he can figure it out.
They drafted him to be a physically talented, downfield, vertical threat, at least early in his career, and do what he did in college, be a reliable downfield option. And he has been that when he's had those opportunities between the preseason and the regular season. He's looked good in that role, which is why it's frustrating. Why can't he get on the field? He's producing when he's on the field. You can't tell me, is the frequent argument, that running Jermaine Burton on 5 go balls a game or a post here and there, whatever it is,
Sure.
downfield vertical options could be a detriment to the offense. You put Jamar Chase in the slot, which they've been doing a little bit more of this year. Let T. Higgins and Jermaine Burton play outside in a sub package. And you have Jermaine Burton as a downfield option that has been, at least we think, reliable as far as catching the ball. Maybe he's running the wrong route like 25% of the time, which is something we speculated happened a few weeks ago where the spacing was really weird between Burton and another player on one particular play, which was Jermaine Burton's last play of the game. It's not like he was playing a lot. That could be a coincidence. It could be that the play design was flawed. It could be that the other guy messed up. We don't know. But if they trusted Jermaine Burton to be out there right now, I think Occam's razor, which for those of you that don't know what Occam's razor is that the simplest explanation is often the explanation. If he was a guy they trusted to do the things, they would want him to do the things, right? Because he would provide value that they're not getting out of the third receiver right now. Not to take anything away from Yosavash or whoever else has been out there, because Yoshi has been clutch in the red zone on that third down. He's come up in big moments for this team, but they're not getting a ton from him. So if they're rotating in Burton for 10 snaps a game to try to get a little bit more from that spot, that wouldn't be a bad thing. I feel like
Oh,
if the coaching staff thought they could do it reliably, they would take that opportunity. They want to be
yeah.
more explosive. They want to hit those plays too. They just don't feel like it's an option right now. That would be the simplest explanation, right?
Yep. And I think it is. And Zach's not going to throw Jermaine under the bus. And the question is, all right, well, what's the issue? Is it playbook wise? Is it trust there? Is it doing all of the right things from meetings and things like that? I don't know. But if he was doing all of those things, why wouldn't they want to play him? Like that's the so conspiracy theorist, the guy who pounded his hands on the table when they drafted him 80th overall, when there were NFL teams that didn't even have Jermaine Burton draftable because of the character stuff, and they take him in the third round and they don't want to play him. Of course they want to play him. Of course they want to play him. So the question is, all right, well, what does he have to do to get that equity and that confidence and that trust from whoever doesn't have it with right now? And that's the question that he has to answer, and he's got to solve it. He does. If this team is going to reach its ceiling, Jermaine Burton being a threat is certainly part of it. Jermaine Burton being this downfield threat. I think when they drafted him initially, they thought he could move around right away. And then they kind of pulled things back a little bit, realized, all right, yeah, you played slot in and outside in college, but you might not necessarily do that here. And so early on, because it's tough. It's the slot position for the Bengals is not easy. And so, all right, so that's tough. Let's dial it back. Okay, they dialed it back, and it's not like the trust is fully there. How do you get it there? And this coaching staff needs to search and find a way to get the most out of Jermaine. And Jermaine does too. And hopefully within the next few weeks, we're seeing him trend in the right direction again. Because going into that Kansas City game, you had all that praise that was thrown at him, and then he kind of came back down a bit from a playing time standpoint. And it is hard. It is hard to stay focused and do the right things day in and day out if you know you're only getting one snap. But guess what? You're a rookie, so do it. And that's got to be his mindset. He's got to attack it regardless. And hopefully he is, because if he is, the talent's there and it'll pull through and he'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
need that for the long-term future of the team, right? That's what we're looking at for the rest of the season is get it together, get on the field, find ways to contribute on the stretch so that there's some confidence built in your ability to be a regular receiver for this team long term.
for sure. And help now.
I mean, obviously that too.
Yeah.
But at least they have T this year.
For sure. And that's, I guess that's to your point, like, can you show that, oh, well, maybe you can be that guy? Because as of now, if the draft's tomorrow, guess what's a huge need, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's, it is a good point. And so hopefully he can help now and earn some of that long-term trust as well.
That's just what I'm talking about is like a minimum hope for this year. Obviously, you hope for more. You hope that he can contribute to the team this year and help them get back to winning more football games. But like in the games he wasn't doing much since that Kansas City game. It's not like the offense was struggling. I don't think that Jermaine Burton unlocks the offense against the Giants. I don't think him playing in that game. Go listen to what Mike and I talked about for like 25 minutes yesterday. The issues weren't receivers besides Jamar Chase having a drop. It was when the ball was coming out. It was at times play calling. It was at times the offensive line's ability to handle stunts with two guys on an island. And none of that is solved by an explosive vertical receiver. Burrow had a shot at T. Higgins, a guy that he does trust one-on-one against single high, and he just ate it on that play. So, like, if that's Jermaine Burton, do you think he's throwing that ball? I have a hard time buying that Burton specifically makes a huge difference in week 6. Maybe I'm wrong. Fun fact, Eric All has 16 catches for 102 yards. If I had told you before the season started, like right after the draft, that Eric All through 6 games would have more catches and yards than Jermaine Burton, what would you have thought?
After the draft? Ooh.
Like right
wouldn't
after
have been, yeah, wouldn't have bought it. I think in camp, when it started to come together, I remember telling a few people like, oh, he's going to out snap certain tight ends, and people kind of roll their eyes, and we see now with Eric. But yeah, after the draft, I wouldn't have said that. And yet here we are. And I think that's where expectations have changed, like with Jermaine. Like, let's be honest about it. That the Bengals, heck, go back and listen. They really thought that this guy was going to be able to come in and move around right away. Not be Jamar, who was just insane right away, but give them some of that. And early on, they were like, all right, let's dial it back some, which is fine because it's hard. It's hard to get adjusted to all of the things that Joe Burrow and this offense want you to do in this offense. But all right, now it's time to push forward. And so whether it's playbook, whether it's anything else, it's time for Jermaine to head down, focus, and hopefully he is and has been. And Zach is right. It just doesn't feel like we have the whole picture. That's all.
There is apparently some work to do there. Let's say that. That's how it seems. Eric All, just to finish that thought, tied for 8th among rookies, interceptions at 16 with Xavier Legette of the Carolina Panthers. 4th round tight end. Not bad. Not bad, Eric
at all.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We're back tomorrow with our crossover and our first look as we think about the trip to Cleveland in 2024. Until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.